Good afternoon, everyone. I am EO of Chuo University, and it is my great pleasure that I would talk about the data science education utilizing Ruby and Ruby on Rails at the conference. So this is the title of my presentation, and I will talk for about 30 minutes. First of all, I would make a brief introduction of myself. I am a professor at the Department of International Informatics of Chuo University. We call it ITL. And at the same time, I'm the board member of Human-Centered Design Operation Organization and the board member of Kotoba no Manabi Kobo. I moved to Chuo University in 2013. Before that, I worked for Mitsubishi Research Institute as a researcher. In April 2013, I became the faculty member of Chuo University, and last year, Chuo University had two departments, ITL and International Economics. And I moved to the International Informatics Department, or ITL, as a professor. My specialty is the research on the interaction of the systems and human operators, user interface. And I worked as the human-centered design operation organizations, and we are trying to educate the importance of user interface. And Kansei Informatics is another field of research. And in relation to this, the image processing technology and software engineering. What I'm going to talk about is the education to create the system for students so that students can utilize this to analyze the social situation. So Ruby and Ruby on Rails are used as a tool. That's what I'm going to talk about today. This is the contents of my presentation. First of all, Ruby on Rails is used to conduct a lot of researches. It's not limited to Ruby on Rails. I have a broad introduction of the research cases. And then I want to talk about the AI and data science education at Chuo University. As you know, I don't know whether you know this, but Chuo University has the Department of Science, but most of the departments are in humanity and human sciences. And there are more students who are on the humanities science. Though it is a university, we don't have a school of medicine. And Chuo University is famous for jurisdiction or jurisprudency. We have a science and engineering department, and we have the Department of Informatics. And the faculties in those science departments are developing the program to educate students on AI and data sciences. This is something the Ministry of Education is focusing, and they want to develop human resources who have a skill to utilize AI and data science technologies. So I want to show you what we are doing to educate the students. So this is something I want to talk today. This is the main topic of research of the students who came to me, and we are focusing on the research on human-system interaction, how human beings utilize the system, what is the human-friendly or user-friendly systems. This is the human perspectives of the system. On the other side, we would like to utilize the system to analyze human behaviors. This is the system perspective. So we have to look at two ways, and we have to consider the interface between the two. And the interface is the service layer. How should the service layer be is one of the topics of research. How can we offer better services? As mentioned before, this is a two-way research. The human user will look at the system. This is the human user system, or usability of the system is to be studied. It is to allow better user interface provision, or it is the way to offer better services. This is one way. On the other side of the coin, as I mentioned before, we have to utilize the system to look at or to analyze the behavior of the human beings or behavior of the operators. So we have to keep in mind that there are two ways to look at the situation. So if we look at the system from the human perspectives, we have to consider what is the usable system for human beings. The keywords are user interface, user experience, usability, design idea. We utilize the system to analyze the society and human behavior. And the research field covers social informatics, quantitative sociology, and the behavioral information analysis. And we have the observation rooms in 2 classrooms on the 11th floor. And usability test is conducted there, in addition to observing the behavior. And not limited to the real behavior, but in the cyberspace, we can analyze the activity of the human beings in the cyberspace, utilizing CGM or SNS. And we would analyze the Twitters and other informations available in the cyberspace. These are the research topics. Recently, web apps are created, and the user participating in the apps are analyzed in terms of their behavior. This is one of the research methods we are utilizing these days. The main target is the human behavior data is collected and analyzed to elucidate the society utilizing data like mathematical quantitative sociology. So we would analyze the society using the data to identify certain profiles of the society, or we would realize more affluent society with the knowledge disclosed. So these are the objectives of the data. This is one methodology of research. I would introduce some of them. Then in the data analysis, the real society is of our interest. But in addition to this, we can observe the human behavior in the real space via cyberspace. The target is the human behavior in the real space, but we may not be able to measure it in the real world. So we utilize the cyberspace as a media to observe their behaviors. And web apps is needed as a tool to collect data. For example, this system is not created with Rails. We use a simple system as shown, like a PHP. This is a hoge typing. This is the title students put. What they compare is the efficiency of typing in through the keyboard between the person who are working in the society, in the companies, and the students. The students had some party and they have some graphic scribbles or graffiti on the whiteboard. And they said that it is easier for them to type in the smartphones, not as the keyboard, but also the one finger typing on the phone numeral keyboards. 10-finger typing seems to be more efficient than one-finger typing. And that's the controversy we had. And in the end, the students decided to compare typing efficiency on the keyboard, 10 fingers versus one finger. And I give some idea to the students. They are very good students. And he developed an apps to practice typing. And at the back end, all the data is extracted. And he compared the results. Then the student typing with one finger is as good as the 10-finger typing. So when compared to the company employees, the efficiency is not inferior. The students' performance is not inferior to the company employees. The next research example is the system of managing rolling in the classrooms. This is a mobile apps. And they would decide where they would sit and they would register themselves. There is a touch panel and there is a handwritten names. And with this, they would register the enrollment or attendance to the class. Mobile apps is a monarch or something. And the back end roll sheet tells student this and this registered at that time. And for the bottom students, he missed the class on the fourth class he missed. And we used the apps on the data sheet. Next example, this is published in IJGUC. This is an interesting research. And this is the Ruby on Rails system. And this is the students' activity. I'm not involved in their research activities. And this is a system of anonymous notice board. This is a kind of a two-channel. And what is unique to this notice board is that they cannot participate in the discussion until they go to certain locations. They use the location informations, and there are chat room A, B, C. And chat room ABC is linked to the location information. User X is in chat room A and chat room B if they go that site. But chat room C has a different locality, so user X cannot participate in the discussion in chat room C. User Z do not belong. Do not user Z is not located in any location of the chat rooms, so he cannot participate in the discussion. So the notice board or chat room is connected to the location information. And it is published in the journal and orally presented in the overseas conference. And this is the Rails-based system. And it is not published as print, but patent is applied.
In addition, this is a bit different and still being operated even today and every day. We are analyzing the current situation. This is about Twitter. There's a trend on the Twitter, and collecting the trend from the Twitter and a topic mark and a narrow and the mark is used for visualization. For instance, this is the video, for instance, 9th of November 2020, and yesterday the Biden is almost the winning the presidential election, and this was the topic and visualize at a glance. And the Rails is used for the system configuration, and but the data is collected by various sources. But Python is used for analysis and data using the API of the Twitter first, and then they're looking at the trend today, and also they are connected to each other, and the connected the Twitters are collected, and then the morphological analysis is applied to this to show the relationship and visualize. So as a result of the series of analyses, you see the data, writing the Ruby script first, and then the script will be given to the seeds. It's a bit complicated, and putting the data one after another on the system based on Rails. And this was the treatise as the publication in the journal. Another example, virtual online event for the support. This is perfectly 100% Rails. And this one and the next one, a dialogue book that I'm going to talk about next, are in the process uh, to be published as the book. And this book is going to be released, launched in the next spring. So this is that dialogue book, as we named it, and this is a kind of the names, and this is the high school students in Japan and overseas countries using the Zoom and the WebEx and using other online the platform, and we are connecting with a high school in Taiwan and high school in the Southeast Asian countries, and for them also the English is a foreign language. So in the context of the language learning, they use uh, each other the second language, which is English, to have the dialogue, and this web application takes a record of the dialogue In addition to taking record, as this is the simple system, uh, it has a function of the learning support system, and it uses a portfolio, which is a record, and the Rubik system is used for the auto evaluation. Again, uh, this was taken up as one of the paper in the journal. I talked about several examples of the research. Why do we use Rails? For instance, Django can be used, and Python is very popular today. So we could use other framework of the web application, but as we are accustomed to Rails, first of all, that's the primary reason, and relatively easy to build system on the Rails, and we can make it uh, well. And also, system configuration, building system is not the ultimate purpose. The purpose ultimately is doing research, and the web application is just a means. We educate students. For instance, Windows is the broad and could have done with a Mac. Those students are using Mac don't have problems, but with a Windows PC, there are many traps and pitfalls, and the students have a trouble, and they say that they should have done with Mac. And every year we hear the same comment. Now, for those students with the Windows, WSL is installed for the establishment of the environment first. But in the future, we could use Docker, and there may be some other possibility of improvement. Now, I don't have much time left. During the last couple of minutes, I'd like to talk about AI data science education at the Chuo University and how Ruby is used. Ruby and the web application on Rails are used for this purpose and is incorporated in the AI and the DS data science education. We are going to do this. As has been mentioned previously, at uh, university in Japan and the cabinet agency and next are trying to make us improve the program in AI. Probably the cabinet ministry last year uh, asked us to present a document regarding the AI education. Uh, if we are doing it, and we have the law school in which we use this, and the list was made to introduce the activities that we are doing at university for AI education. And university-wide AI and data science education is attempted in April 2021. Uh, we started the AI Center. We have an organization with respectable professors, and this is for the university-wide education for both humanities and science, and the literacy education is a given. What is AI, for instance? And for the students in the humanities department, for instance, uh, we do not go to the extent that differential equation and the mathematics complicated for those students, but we would educate the basic concept of artificial intelligence. So this is a literacy. And also in the engineering department, we have information engineering department. So we do have specialist professors. And also in our department of international information, we do have a professor. So these are the specialized education. And we are trying to connect between the basic education and the specialized education. And this bridge is given by the AIDS Center, FLP based AIDS education. This is a cross uh, overlaying education for the entire university to provide AI and the data science. This is for the all of the other students, and this is very close to the seminar. And I'm going to take charge of one of them. And there is another one that is a subjective tools, which include Python, Ruby, Rails, R, SQL, SPSS, other tools, and in which we provide a basic education. Here you find Ruby and Rails for the collection and the analysis of data. We forcefully put this because I am involved. I decided to insert it. As I mentioned previously, for the promotion of the data analysis, it is very important to use Ruby as a tool, Ruby Rails as a tool. And this is example of the material of the lecture, starting from the introduction course to the application of Rails. In total 14 lectures, and this is the proposal of the syllabus. I don't know how far we could go, but the 100 minutes by 14 times. Usually, the other university have a 90 minutes lecture, but for us, 100 or 100 minutes, 105 minutes by 13 and 100 minutes per 14, but in our case, 100 minutes for 14 times of the lecture. So why did we add the two subjects? In the first part of my presentation, I introduced that this is happening already, and the students are autonomously learning the real applications, but it is rather difficult to learn by themselves. Therefore, I hold extracurricular seminar and independent seminars, and I gave instruction to the students. So I worked as hard as I was doing, and if this is considered as the official curriculum, this would be other good things and everybody would be happy. So as I mentioned earlier, the development of the application for the data collection can be promoted, and this will be more fun and more interesting, and the research activity can be done. So this is a win-win, and everybody would be satisfied. So I would like to conclude by saying that we are fabricating the web application on Rails, and using the applications, we are involved in various activities, the analysis of the data, analysis of the research results. I talked about this in the beginning. In the latter half of my presentation, I talked about the AI data science education at our university. We are promoting this university-wide environment, and we put the Ruby and the Rails education as part of this so that Ruby Rails can be used. And we have online material as well. and therefore we could share outside of the Chuo University as well. Thank you very much. This concludes my presentation.